The nickname came later, Bloody Mary. It was easy to remember. It was easy to teach. The official story keeps it simple. She was a bitter, childless queen. She was a fanatical Catholic. Fires were lit in market squares. Her father, Henry VIII, remains the colourful tyrant. He had wives, jousts, and banquets. He was dangerous, but entertaining. The records tell something colder. The real butchery started with Henry. He destroyed monasteries and hanged rebels. He beheaded noblemen and queens, yet his daughter's name carries the blood. The darker pattern sits underneath the slogans. She was a girl publicly declared a bastard. This happened because her mother would not disappear quietly. She was a daughter forced to sign away loyalty to her mother to stay alive. A princess was reduced to a servant. She served in her baby sister's household. Men wrote that story. Women helped enforce it. Her ladies-in-waiting watched her age in humiliation. They later laughed about her hysterical pregnancies. Elizabeth's regime cemented the nickname that stuck. The father broke the church. The daughter carried the stain. Mary's life began as a triumph. She was Henry VIII's only legitimate child for almost 20 years. Ambassadors praised her intelligence. She spoke several languages. She played the virginals gracefully. Her mother, Catherine of Aragon, raised her with iron discipline. Mary absorbed one idea: rulers were sacred instruments of God. The court treated her like a jewel. Foreign powers discussed her marriage. She was the Tudor future wrapped in Spanish piety. Then Henry's body failed him. He produced no surviving sons. The blame slid naturally onto Catherine. She was old and past childbearing. Her womb became the official problem. Mary, by extension, became a reminder of failure. Anne Boleyn's arrival turned resentment into policy. Mary watched another woman do what her mother would not. Anne flirted and refused to be a mistress. She encouraged Henry's fantasies of a new start. Female rivalry was not imagined here. It was engraved into law. Catherine refused to step aside. Henry ordered Mary to acknowledge Anne as queen. Mary refused. The girl had Catherine's spine. The punishment began quietly. Mary's household was dismantled. Her closest attendants were dismissed. She was ordered to stop using the title princess. Paper stripped away a position held since birth. The next phase became psychological warfare. Mary was separated from her mother. Catherine was sent to distant houses. Letters passed between them, smuggled and fearful. Each woman knew she was being watched. Court records show counsellors debating how far to go. Some suggested sending Mary to the Tower. International politics, not parental mercy, kept her alive. Anne Boleyn understood the danger Mary posed. As long as Mary lived, some Catholics viewed her as the true heir. Anne's child, Elizabeth, needed Mary diminished. Witnesses recalled Anne mocking Mary's stubbornness. Anne pressed for harsher measures. This was female competition at state level, the older daughter of one marriage versus the younger of another. Both were dependent on a man's favour. Mary was forced into Elizabeth's household. She served as a glorified attendant. The older princess carried the toddler princess's train. Ladies smiled politely while absorbing the hierarchy. Some had served Catherine. Now they curtsied to Anne and the new child. They pretended nothing had changed. Her body reacted to the stress. Reports mention headaches and sickness. She developed chronic health problems that would haunt her reign. No one at court connected those symptoms to years of displacement and fear. The submission document became the turning point. Henry demanded Mary recognize him as supreme head of the church. More brutal still, she had to admit her parents' marriage was unlawful. To save herself, she had to label herself illegitimate. She had to call her mother a liar. Council records show the pressure applied. Envoys warned refusal could be considered treason. Her confessor urged compliance as survival. Some of her female attendants, terrified for their own positions, advised surrender. She resisted for a long time. Letters describe her as untractable. They called her perversely attached to the old faith. That language coded a simple reality. A young woman refused to parrot a lie about her own birth. Eventually, under threat of execution, she broke. She signed the document. The text is chilling. She declared herself a bastard. She accepted her father's supremacy over the church. She stated her mother's marriage had been invalid from the start. Her body survived. Something inside her did not. A royal child helped erase her own legitimacy. This was so her father could sleep easier with another woman. Henry and Anne produced no surviving sons either. Anne died under the axe. Elizabeth also received the bastard label. The pattern repeated exactly. Female children were blamed for male failures. Jane Seymour came next. Jane played peacemaker. She encouraged Henry to reconcile with Mary. This reconciliation carried its own poison. Mary had to repeat the submission conditions. Her reinstatement was built on self-erasure. She kissed the hand that had stripped her name. Jane delivered the son Henry wanted. She died soon after. She was in agony from childbirth complications. Another woman's body was broken to satisfy a dynastic hunger. Mary watched and learned. Kingship demanded heirs, whatever the cost to women's flesh. Mary's path to power ran through Edward's sickbed. Edward VI, the male heir, came to the throne as a child. Real power lay with Protestant councillors. Mary, fiercely Catholic, refused to attend their new services. She continued hearing Mass in private. She did this even when warned it was illegal. Ambassadors reported the regime considered seizing her. Imperial letters show plans to educate her into obedience. They understood she was a Catholic rallying point. Edward's health deteriorated rapidly. The government panicked. A Catholic queen would undo their revolution. Their solution used another woman as a political tool. Lady Jane Grey, a teenage girl, became their Protestant pawn. They pushed her into marriage and convinced her to accept a crown. Another young woman's signature was used to keep Mary out. Mary did what enemies had not expected. She fled when guards came for her. She rode out to gather supporters. Noblemen backed her against religious extremism. Ordinary people rallied to traditional worship. Jane's reign collapsed within days. The same council that proclaimed Jane now declared for Mary. Their loyalty was conditional on survival. Mary rode into London to cheers. The girl who carried her half-sister's train entered as an anointed monarch. England had its first crowned queen regnant. Inside the palaces, female reactions were mixed. Some ladies rejoiced at Mary's victory. Others dreaded a return to strict Catholic observance. They knew this queen forgave slowly. Mary's reign began heavy with fear. She needed a husband. A queen alone was viewed as dangerous. She chose Philip of Spain over English nobles. The decision matched her Spanish blood and Catholic devotion. Domestically, the choice was disastrous. Many English subjects feared becoming a Habsburg province. Rebellions flared immediately. Mary saw the marriage as a sacred duty. She believed it would restore England's soul. She also longed for a child to secure the succession. The wedding united them in public splendor. Privately, the balance tilted. Philip had his own priorities abroad. Mary adored him. He tolerated her. Her ladies watched an old pattern repeat. A royal woman clung to a husband. He was more interested in power than affection. They saw her mood swing with every rumor of his absence. Then came the first pregnancy. The signs seemed clear. Her belly swelled. Her menstrual cycle stopped. Accounts mention morning sickness and cravings. Court celebrations began early. Baby clothes were prepared. Her female attendants measured time by her changing shape. A queen in her late 30s was finally expecting. Whispers spoke of miracles and divine approval. Months passed, no child arrived. Physicians kept extending the expected date. They palpated her abdomen and speculated. Medical knowledge was crude then. An enlarged abdomen could mean tumors or fluid. They preferred the hopeful explanation. Her ladies sensed something was wrong. Some wrote discreetly about growing doubts. Gossip began to turn cruel. Those who disliked Mary's policies mocked the false pregnancy. They called it God's judgment. They called it hysteria. Her body horror mixed with political failure. If the swelling came from disease, it tortured her physically. If it was a misdiagnosed pregnancy, the deflation humiliated her. She walked through those months under thousands of eyes. Each measured her size like a timetable. Philip left for Spain. He did not rush back to comfort her. His absence exposed the true priority. Empire first, wife second. The failure echoed her mother's story. A Tudor king's expectations collided with reality. The woman bore the blame once again. The burnings fixed her reputation. Mary believed in souls. She believed heresy dragged souls to damnation. Her answer was fire. Protestant preachers burned in market squares. Some roasted slowly, screaming while families watched. Records document the smell of burned flesh drifting over towns. These executions were not unique to her. Her father executed opponents without hesitation. Elizabeth would later send Catholics to the scaffold. The difference lay in the framing. Under Mary, martyrs wrote their own narratives. Their deaths were published in vivid detail. Fox's Book of Martyrs immortalized them. Her image settled. A queen who delighted in flames. There is no evidence she delighted in them. There is plenty she authorized them and refused to stop them. Her piety had teeth. Her conscience aligned with brutality. Her ladies attended some executions from windows. They reported her reactions. She prayed and fasted. She spoke of saving souls, not punishing bodies. Other women at court used the burnings to rise. Some emphasized their Protestant leanings quietly. They prepared for the possibility of Mary's death. Others performed extreme Catholic devotion to impress her. They then pivoted smoothly under Elizabeth later. Female loyalty became another costume. Male failure threaded through these years. Philip did little to support her emotionally. Her counsellors mishandled foreign policy. They dragged England into a war that lost Calais. The loss broke Mary's heart. She reportedly said Calais would be found engraved upon it when she died. Yet it was Mary whose name carried the shame, not her male advisors or absent husband. The jackpot cluster lands in the reputational aftermath. Henry's treatment of Mary in youth laid the groundwork. He humiliated and threatened her. He forced that degrading submission. He fractured her sense of security. When she later clung to rigid religious certainty, the roots lay in that early terror. A girl who saw truth twisted later, clung to a truth that would not bend. Official history under Elizabeth sharpened Mary's faults. It blurred Henry's. Protestant writers under the new regime needed a villainous. Mary provided the perfect foil for Elizabeth's image. Executions ordered by Elizabeth rarely earned nicknames. Mary's burnings did. Female betrayal extended into memory. Some women who served Mary wrote later under Elizabeth. They emphasized her melancholy and cruelty. They emphasized her imagined pregnancies. Their accounts helped structure the legend. Protecting themselves meant staining the old queen deeper. The comparison with Henry reveals selective disgust. He killed wives, friends, and nobles with mechanical regularity. He shattered an ancient religious system for his desires. He left his children a poisoned legacy of division. Schoolbooks remember him as larger than life. He is an amusing monster, not a horror. Mary's body count was smaller. Her personal life contained no serial marriages. She loved one man who did not truly love her back. She desperately wanted a child to secure stability. Instead, she became the fixed image of female fanaticism. Her final decline was ugly and quiet. She likely suffered from uterine or ovarian disease and dropsy. Her legs swelled, her abdomen distended again. Courtiers whispered about another pregnancy. When no child appeared, the whispers hardened into mockery. Her pain became palace entertainment. Mary died in 1558, 42 years old. She was childless and sick. Her name became shorthand for fanatic and failure. The irony sits in Westminster Abbey. Mary and Elizabeth share a tomb. One inscription honours Elizabeth's glorious memory. Mary lies beneath, an afterthought. The physical arrangement mirrors the historiography. The Protestant victor's story carved over the Catholic predecessor's bones. Wealth, royal blood, and a crown did not shelter her. They magnified every wound. They turned private humiliation into public theatre. They allowed others to build their own safety on the wreckage of her life. The story of the other Mary Tudor, Henry VIII's sister, reveals the same cold arithmetic. She was called the dazzling French Queen. She was sold as a diplomatic jewel. The official tale paints a romantic interlude, a glittering teenage princess, a king so enchanted he died of happiness in her bed. The records show a colder reality. Her husband, Louis XV, was a sick, aging man. He had swollen joints and failing organs. Mary was a girl of 18. She was treated like an emergency womb. Women on both sides calculated what happened in that bed. She was traded, measured, and carefully watched. Mary crossed the Channel in 1514. Chroniclers called her the most beautiful princess in Europe. Her brother Henry displayed her like a diplomatic jewel. The French ladies saw a different threat. They saw a young body thrown at a failing king. The goal was to block the succession of Francis of Angoulême. Louise of Savoy, Francis's mother, would lose everything if Mary produced a son. The entire future of the kingdom would shift. Behind the curtsies, the women whispered calculations. They measured her hips, her complexion, her step. Every woman knew exactly why she was there. Her beauty made a perfect story. Her body carried the risk. Louis XIV was 52. He had outlived 2 queens. He desperately needed a male heir. Cardinal Wolsey arranged the deal. Henry promised, his sister agreed willingly. The letters downplay the private bargain. Mary was in love with Charles Brandon. She only agreed to the French king after Henry swore a promise. He swore she could choose her second husband freely. Once her duty was done, he would not force her again. It sounded like escape with a time delay. She endured the old king. She produced a son, if possible. She planned to return to England and marry for love. Then Mary reached France. She discovered promises made in English corridors meant little in French bedrooms. The wedding was magnificent. Louis stood beside her, limping from gout. His face was lined with pain and years. That night, decorum required proof of function. A ritual involved a duke touching Mary under the bedclothes. This was theatrical insurance. It covered for a king too exhausted to perform. The marriage had to be seen as real. The court glides past the sweat and the groans. They do not mention how many women hoped the sheets stayed cold. Louis had not been healthy for years. Physicians reported crippling gout and swollen legs. Ambassadors wrote discreetly about his infirmities. They used polite phrases hiding the truth. The French king was near the end. Yet after the wedding, he tried to live like a newlywed. Contemporaries recorded his insistence on Mary's chamber. He boasted of resuming marital duties with youthful vigor. Physicians warned against overexertion. He ignored them entirely. The palace women watched the transformation sharply. He had crept upstairs for years. Now he ordered new nightshirts. Gossip travelled faster than any royal messenger. A single successful pregnancy could undermine everything. Louise of Savoy would lose everything she prepared for. Her letters show intense focus on her son's prospects. She records the king's death with formal piety and private relief. Mary's body was no longer her own. French matrons marked her cycles. Servants tracked any missed courses. Bed sheets could become evidence. Every bout of nausea would be interpreted. They studied her like livestock. Older noblewomen watched her walk the same track. They weighed their own fortunes against her potential motherhood. Female solidarity was fragile. Court life placed women in direct competition for survival. Louis XV died on the first day of 1515, barely 3 months after marrying Mary. French sources said he exhausted himself in the bedchamber. They blamed the old lion overreaching with his young bride. Modern historians point to chronic illness. The rumours flatter Mary's beauty and youth. They hide the brutal fact of years of illness. Blaming the 18-year-old made a neater story. It was a convenient distraction from male physicians who mismanaged Louis. It distracted from the factions waiting for his last breath. Louis's death solved almost everyone's problem except Mary's. Francis became king at 20. Louise became the most powerful woman in France overnight. Mary was a 19-year-old queen dowager. She was watched by spies and protected by English troops. She took her chance and married Charles Brandon in secret. On paper, what she did was treason. A dowager queen refused the board. She married without her king's permission. Henry's reaction was political rage. Council records indicate talk of execution for Brandon. The king's favourite had threatened royal authority. Mary's choice was not only romantic, it was a survival strategy. She knew what another arranged marriage would mean. Another older husband, another cycle of pregnancies risked for someone else's politics. Henry used her as currency twice. He traded her to France for prestige. He used her scandal to claw back money and valuables. Brotherly affection did not stop him from stripping her jewels. He turned her happiness into a ledger entry. Her ladies at the English court preserved the scandal. They repeated phrases emphasizing her folly and rashness. Their gossip reinforced Henry's power. They painted her happiness as something the king allowed. They turned Mary's decision into a continuing lesson. Even princesses could be dragged over the coals for choosing love. The ironic twist is simple and cruel. The princess who defied her brother married for love. She did not die on a scaffold. She died in childbirth complications at 37. Her body paid the old, recurring price anyway. The brother who used her as a pawn married repeatedly. He disposed of wives as politics required. Mary's secret marriage looks bold from a distance. Up close, it reveals the narrowness of royal women's options. Obey and risk being spent to death by childbearing. Defy and survive only if a man in power grants mercy. Wealth, youth, and beauty did not free her. They only made her more valuable to the players. The pattern repeats across royal houses and centuries. Men's cruelties become complex. Women's become cautionary. The darkness in this history is not just in the flames. It is in the centuries of pens that decided whose sins deserved understanding. Henry's bedroom humiliation becomes gossip. Mary's phantom pregnancy becomes pathology. His cruelty becomes statecraft. Her severity becomes madness. That is the story under the nickname. A dynasty where scandal touched everyone, but only one daughter carried the stain forever.